Hey, beautiful soul. Before we jump into the episode, I want to know, did you know that I have a completely free virtual new moon circle called Co-Create every single month? This stemmed out of a constant request for a space or a church that taught so many different spiritual modalities, tools, systems, beliefs, and I didn't have any place to send them. So I created it. In Co-Create, this is the space that I want to bring to you to learn how to create a connection to yourself, your energetics, and the divine in a community that won't make you feel like a weirdo. A space where you can ask any question you want, where we get to dive into so many systems and beliefs and tools, and you get to pick and choose what feels good for you. So you can learn what it means to truly co-create with the universe, God, source, for flow, trust, and surrender, to connect with other women who are spiritually curious in a space that's safe, sacred, and inspirational. It's your space for you to find your people and lean into new spiritual practices to truly co create with the universe or God or source or whoever you feel connected to. You'll gain tools and knowledge to understand what it really means to lean into the universal laws and become magnetic, all while being held by massive feminine energy. I've been hosting these free new moon circles for almost a year now, and it's definitely one of my most sacred spaces, and it's completely free for you every single month. Diana said that she made a promise to herself that she would work on her personal development and growth journey earlier in 2024. So I reached out to her and asked her for a testimonial to share with us. And what she said was Adriana's membership community and Co-Create has accelerated that and more. I have had multiple breakthroughs from finding a new career path, improving my mental health by reducing my anxiety and depression through journaling, meditation, and breath work, improving my physical health, doing walking meditations are my jam, strengthening my marriage and relationships, improving my money mindset, and just setting up a routine that complements my design. I've learned to embrace challenges as a sign of growth. I will continuously do my best to be in harmony with myself, with this world, and the universe. I have never felt so seen, heard, safe, and supported. Her community and Co-Create has helped me connect to my true authentic self, to move with grace and intention, to embrace everyone's uniqueness. And we each have a special gift and are collectively part of this world to show and share it this way. Thank you so much, Diana, for sharing all of your reflections and how Co-Create and my community has changed your life. And now I want to share it with everyone else. The link to register is in the show notes below. Even if you register for 1 month, you will automatically be signed up to be able to join every single month for as long as you're on the list. So you don't have to repeat it every month. You will always get on the list. You will always have the Zoom link available. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Now enjoy the episode. Welcome to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm Adriana Keefe, human design coach and motivational speaker. I went through my quarter life crisis in my 20s and had to learn how to navigate through finding what I was meant to be doing with my life. I refused to believe in the culture that said we were all meant to have the same path and boring careers until we retire and die. And along my journey, I found human design, a system that reveals your energetic blueprint, showing you where and how to access your body's consciousness and how to live as your true self. Human design changed my life, so I started sharing it with others and changing their lives, but we were all finding the same problem: a lack of resources that explain the system in easy and useful ways. So I created this show where we dive deep into the lessons of the human design system without the BS and the noise you find on the internet. Listen in for lessons in human design, finding your purpose, manifestation and spiritual practices, human design within business, and so much more. We connect with other experts in the human design and spiritual realm in a refreshingly honest way to help you find your way along your spiritual path and live this life with intention. It's time to let go of the societal expectations of being and let yourself find abundance through being uniquely you. Let's get started.
Third line, but
Oh, yeah. Um, okay, here we go. Actually, sometimes I still feel like I'm experiencing the third line. But
you are
anyway,
in different ways.
different ways. All right. Okay, well, happy new year. What better way to start the new year than talking about manifestation? I actually really can't stand that word. I always get annoyed because it's just so mainstreamy. I like to use co-create or something like that. But that's what we're talking about today is manifestation. And I have my good friend and fellow human design expert, Krystle, here. You guys have heard her before talking about environment, among other things. She's a fucking genius with the variables and all of that. And the first time we ever, I think it was the first time we met, we bonded over this whole specific versus non-specific debacle. I think it was like a trick question I gave you to see how much I liked you, but that's the first time you're hearing that. So, Krystle, why don't you take a minute to say hello and introduce yourself?
First of all, I'm just dead right now because that just for knowing you and your chart and then like being caves. And I feel like that's like a caves thing to do.
Let me see if I let
Like,
you in.
yeah, let me see if you can come into the cave. Um,
Yep.
you I feel like if a caves person likes you, you're good. Like in with life.
Good with
So
life.
I
Yes.
I just wanted to throw that out there. But anyways, thanks for having me back. I'm really excited to talk about this. My name's Krystle. I'm a 1-3 sacral generator. I'm also a Capricorn rising, a Sagittarius sun, and an Aries moon. So a lot going on. But I have been in my human design experiment now for almost 8 years. Jeez. Uh, And I also have a Kabbalistic background. I am a vessel of love. So and my conscious sun is gate 10. So I feel like I am a human design lifestyle mentor. This is a lifestyle change. This is not just, a diet. Okay. Sure, you can try it on and see if it fits, but most likely it does because it's you. And so I'm helping people love themselves to the fullest capacity. And one of the biggest ways I do that is through the variables because they are also known as the four radical transformations. Not a lot of people know that that's actually the other term for it. And that's because if you can step into these four components that are literally steps, one, two, three, four, then you can radically transform your life. And so it has changed my life to the fullest. I would say when it comes to my design, that was the biggest component that really helped me take off. It helped me get to my correct environment. And that's when things really started to shift for me. And so for me, the variables are everything. So when you said you wanted to have this conversation, I was like, all you had to say was variable. And
And I'll be there.
and I responded, yeah.
Yes. I love that. Something I didn't put together until literally right now with your sun gate and 10.
Mm.
I'm guessing that's why you used to be a hairstylist.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? Because
Yeah.
like you wanted to make people love the way they looked and felt about themselves.
Yeah. And my unconscious son is the 46. So and something that I've learned, and this is something we can have another conversation on another time, but everything starts with your unconscious son. Especially when you're looking at it in relation to variables and the way that you are taking like almost like I look at it as almost like the first step of your day or the first step of your life. And we're kind of going through the themes of that incarnation cross in congruence to your variables. And I feel like at the beginning of my life, like the first 30 years of my life, were body focused. That gate 46, that unconscious sun, and also my unconscious Mercury. So people really love talking to me about the body. I feel like your unconscious Mercury, people just like tend to gravitate towards that conversation with you, or when you speak about it, you like pull people in, or people just naturally want to talk with you about it. So I feel like being a vessel of love, my unconscious sun being gate 46, which is also connected to Libra. So I feel like lots of beauty. And I feel like for me to truly have loved myself, I had to start there with the body. And I really wanted to make people look beautiful because that was like I grew up in South Florida, okay? Heavily body
Hmm.
focused.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel like all around with being a vessel of love, that 46 and that 10, really, I wanted people, if you could look beautiful, a lot of times you do feel better about yourself. So yeah.
That's so funny. I never put that together, or maybe I never realized your sun gate was 10. That makes so much sense. Oh, okay. Awesome. Now I'm having Mercury retrograde tech issue over here. My other screen just went black, but it looks like you can still see it, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
As
So
far
my
if I
my
can see
arrow
it.
won't be able to make its way over there. I'm like, what just happened? But if you guys are watching on YouTube, we are talking about, you'll see my chart. I'm going to take it down in a second since it's not working on my computer anyway. But we're talking about manifestation from the variables, and that is the four arrows that you see on your chart. Not every chart has these actually, but if you download from like my website, you'll be able to see them. And it is the bottom right arrow that you see. You'll see how it points left or it points right. And all of mine point left. So I'm going to stop sharing now since it's not working. But the whole conversation that we're going to have today is all about specific versus non-specific manifestation. And while we're about to kind of debunk a very popular human design myth here, I want you, as you're listening, to remember that whatever works for you, let it work for you. So like even if we're saying something that you're like, that's not how it's worked in my body. I've actually used this method and it works really well. Fucking awesome. Keep doing it. We are just here to give more about the facts and life experience from ourselves and I guess teach the teach the opposite. But there's a very popular human design educator out there who is amazing. And she likely channeled this on her own. I don't know if it was a channeled thing or if she just kind of logically put the pieces together where this, I almost said awareness center. That's not what I mean. Here, Krystle, I'm going to pass it off to you. Describe that variable and why this is something that they talk about specific versus non-specific.
Okay. So just to give, I feel like in order to talk about that variable, I just want to touch on what they all mean so that it makes more sense and just give you the flow. So I want you to either pull up your chart or imagine your chart and imagine those arrows up at the top of your chart. They're going to be connected to gates as well, but we're not going to get into that. That's how you can get more specific for to make it a little bit more nuanced for you. Because just because somebody is, for example, power view, doesn't mean they're holding the same way in which it's going to be expressed. That's going to be through the gates. So the first variable or arrow that you're going to want to look at is that top left arrow. That's the first step, and that's determination. Some people also refer to it as digestion. Foundational terminology is determination, and it is basically the way your brain takes in food and information. And in order for your brain to take in food and information correctly, it needs to be in the correct environment. It is dependent upon its environment. So that is actually the second step is your environment. If you can take in correctly, be in the right space, then you're going to then be in your environment where you're going to interact with the right people that are going to help give you the correct perspective. And that's what we're going to be focusing on. And that's called a view. Also perspective. That's that bottom right variable. So we went from top left, bottom left, and then we moved over to the personality mind. When you get to view, that's the first time you enter the mind. And that's when transference really takes a hold. I mean, the mind wants to be in control. So I would say if you truly want to change and transform your life, you need to know your view variable. That was the biggest game changer for me because it helped me almost like reconfigure my mind and my mental thoughts and the mental patterns that come up. I run an intensive and we do an experiment with all the variables. And for some reason, everybody loves my view one because that is really what helped me let go of the not self. That's where the not self shows up the heaviest, is going to be in your view. And so your view is the way you see the world. It's almost like the glasses that you're wearing. We all have different glasses. It's why we hear each other's perspectives and like we're like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. Because we all have a different view. So your view perspective is the way that you see the world. Now, somebody else that we've been talking about came up with a completely different version of this. And I sort of see why they did that. I don't
Mhm.
fully agree with it. And the reason why is because it's not accurate enough for it to be to work every time. That and for me, as a 1-3, it
I didn't even
The
think about that, but
foundation's
yes.
got to be there or it's
Yes.
a no for me. So that's why
Hmm.
for me when I learned about it, I was like I remember saying to myself, "Are you sure?" Because like I was still at that point when cuz like Jenna, all right, are we allowed to say her name?
I mean, people probably are gonna figure it out if they want to, so sure.
Okay, so Jay-Z,
Jay-Z. So Jay-Z. Yes.
let's just call her Jay-Z.
Mhm.
She like when I found human design, she was basically like just coming online and like just kind of like she hadn't even really blown up at that point. She was like just talking about things and like going on some podcasts and stuff like that. And that was like around the time that I had found human design. And I was like, I don't know like the variables because I didn't really learn the variables. It wasn't a thing until like I was like year three. Like you couldn't find anything on the variables. So that was the thing
Mhm.
with her was that she was one of the first people that posted about the variables and started doing her like
Even now, I think you're
yeah.
one of the very few people who has content on variables. There's not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And stuff I see, I'm like, again, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Hmm. Yep.
Because it's the reason why I think it's so easy to kind of manipulate the information is because Raw had just started to scratch the surface with the variables before he had passed.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Okay.
Yeah. So like I'm so like when I think about all of the information that I have from him on the variables, I'm just like, what would it have become over time? Because I don't know if you know this, but manifesting generators, he used to say they were more manifestor.
Yes, and I
Okay.
actually very much feel that too.
Do you? Do you have
Yeah.
the 2034?
My
No,
screen's not working
no.
again.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh no. I
I
can
don't,
see.
but I have the 20. I don't have the 34.
Okay. I also heard that, and this was actually recent, and I found this to be fascinating and also to be true. So tell me if you think it's true because you're a manifesting generator, but that every manifesting generator is trying to be the pure manifesting generator, which is the 2034. Like that's really what they want to strive to be. But obviously, there's only so many out there that actually have that full channel. But that's really what they want to be. And that's where things can get kind of like, I feel like confusing for the manifesting generator because if you don't have the 2034, then you're really like a generator with manifesting qualities, which is still
Yes.
wonderful. But
Right.
it's
And so
very
like it's
different than the
very
2034.
yeah, it's very blanket. I mean, I feel like we're kind of running into the same blanket generalizations projectors run into because like as Manny Gens, we could either feel super more generator or super more manifestor. And then like, do
Mhm.
we initiate? Do we not initiate? And so there's definitely a lot of that back and forthness going on. Yes.
I also find manifesting generators that are from sacral up to the throat, like yours.
Mm.
Um, to be really fascinating and that interesting that you said that you feel more manifestory because I'm like that component I see more generator. So but like it just anything with the manifesting generator once you respond it's just like it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I
That
don't
is
care
true.
I don't care
Yeah.
what your configuration is. Once you respond, it just shows up. For a generator, a pure generator like me, there could be a few more things that need to happen or there's more to the story. Where for you guys, it's just like, I responded, here I go. I had a thought and it just showed up.
Yes and no. There's caveats to that, like
There is, there
unhealed
is.
traumas and all of that.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just back to the generalizing, just like looking at the themes. I like to look at
Yeah.
patterns and themes. And
Yep.
so and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about with this variable situation, because I'm just like, this doesn't make sense to me. But
Hmm.
I want you to lead. We're also both desire motivation, so this is fun. I don't know if you've ever thought about when you're in the presence of another desire, like how that dynamic goes, because it's very different
I
than if
think
it's
that's
just
why we have
you.
such engaging conversations, I would guess.
Mm.
I don't know. But what was I going to say? Oh, it's so interesting thinking about Ra passing before he really was able to dive deeper in the variables, because now the way I see it is that the rest of us who are devoting our life to this work are what's what I'm looking for? We almost have like a commitment to continue channeling the rest of that information.
Mm.
Like,
And it's mutating.
yes, right. And
Yeah.
even that being said, so all right, let's start back at Jay-Z.
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 Jay,
Um,
everyone's gonna think we're talking about
I
actual Jay-Z.
I know, I know.
Which is also he's also a projector, by the way.
He is? Oh, I wouldn't have thought
That's
that.
yeah. Somebody
Yeah.
else just told me that. I didn't look up his charts, so they might have
Yeah.
who
Who
knows
knows?
what anybody's
Who
the
knows?
celebrities' charts are.
Right.
Get their exact birth information. Like Ryan Gosling, also a projector. I got his birth
Oh, I
information.
could see that one actually.
Yes,
Projector vibes all the way.
all the way.
So when I first learned about this whole specific versus non-specific thing, I am facing left. So for me, technically, you too, Crystal, right? We would technically, in those terms, be specific manifestors,
Mhm.
meaning that if we want to call something in to co-create with the universe, to a vision board, goals, whatever, we have to be really specific. The way that it'll work for us is by being like down to the color, the make, like think about a car exactly, like with what rims and when it comes and blah blah blah. And I hung on to that for a while, and it really did. It didn't just not work for me, it repelled things, and I went backwards a lot. So I was
Oh.
like, okay, maybe this is just because I'm still healing. Like there's a lot of work I still have to do subconsciously. Anyone who's listening knows I'm a huge advocate of To Be Magnetic. I've done a lot of their work
Mhm.
among my own things like tapping and all of that. And the
Also
more I've
projector.
healed, yes, she's a projector. Yep. And the more I've healed, the more that things naturally have just started magnetizing toward me. This is obviously because I'm so much more in alignment now. So I play around with the like, okay, now what if I try to specifically call in something? Still no. I have to actually completely let something go and trust the
Mm.
universe to provide me with what the universe thinks is best for me. And then it shows up like a delightful fucking surprise. But if I it did not work. It was clearly ass
Mhm.
backwards. It didn't feel good because I never got anything I wanted. So that's where I
And
started
you're
really,
frustrated.
yeah, frustrated. Yes. And angry. Angry at the world, like angry at this educator, like why, or angry at myself because I was like, why am I broken? What's wrong with me? So when I
Mm.
first met you, and I was like, you have so much more experience than I do. I'm dying to hear your thoughts on this. And you got like heated. You were like, there is no proof of any of this in any of the
No,
original teachings. So,
no.
yes, my specific experience with this and the clients that I've gone through this with, we have not found a correlation there
I
with
can
being
tell
able
you
to
what it is
go
of
on.
why I think she made all this up because I just have to be honest. And you
Hmm.
guys can come for me if you want. I honestly don't care. I'm at the point in my human design experiment where I just don't care.
Give no fucks.
Um,
Like when you turn like
yeah,
80 years old and you just don't care anymore.
I am like an 80-year-old lady. Anyways, um, I see where she's coming from with this information just to
Right.
add another component to it since we were talking about back to view is that your unique perspective, unique lens that you wear to see
Hmm.
the world. Okay, that's why the mind here can get really transferred and come into the not self because the mind wants to control and this is the way it sees the world. So of
Hmm.
course it's gonna be like, well, this is what I see. I want to keep you safe.
Yeah.
So it puts you in that small box, which is called transference, which is connected to your not self. And it's the resistant part of you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the part of you that honestly says the same fucking thing every time. And this is, I've been doing this experiment 4 times now with groups of people for 4 rounds. And each time people realize that they're just saying this, their transferred not self is just saying the same mental loop over and over and over and over again. And it's connected to that color. Now, color is actually what's underneath the surface of you. Okay. It's connected to your hardwiring. Okay. It's really the part of you that helps you come alive and come online because it's the way that you are going to interact with frequency. That's what the variables are. That's it. It's an awareness tool to show you how you interact with frequency. Okay, so color is like almost like the color of you and the way you're going to then express through those gates and lines once it reaches the surface. The color is underneath. Okay, so hopefully I didn't lose anybody. Just think of it as almost like what's internally inside of you and like your one of your strongest gifts. Okay? So, that strongest gift is also connected to your nodes. Now, your human design nodes, which are those gates, okay, and also connected to your astrology node. So this is where I think she like made all this stuff and tried to use your nodes because nodes is about trajectory. So it's like if you want to manifest and get what you want in life, then you have to look at your view variable because then if you can either manifest through specific details or non-specific details, then it's going to help move you up in life. That is the only thing that I was like, and that might not even be what she meant. But that's the only way that I saw it could even potentially work is because this is connected to your trajectory. Okay. This is connected to goals, right?
Yep.
Where do you want to go? That's what your nodes are. Where did you start and where are you going? Right? South node is where you start, north node is where you're going. So it's the only thing that I could come up with as to why she said that. Also, left facing means she calls it a specific manifestor. Um, and that's because left facing is all about the details.
And
So that's when
strategy.
yeah, it's strategic. And then right facing is passive. It's peripheral. It's taking in, I like to say it's taking in the peripheral of a circle. And for left facing, it's taking in the nucleus,
Mm, yep.
directly looking at it, right? And so if you're left facing, you're directly looking at something, you're directly focused on it, you have a direct focus goal, for example, as to why I think she said this. And if you're right facing, then you're passive. And she says it's more about, what does she say? Like the feeling,
No, I don't
like
listen to it
tough.
much anymore.
I don't even fully remember.
I don't remember. Yeah.
And that makes a little bit of sense because anything that's right facing is going to be connected to the solar plexus binary. Anything that's left facing is going to be connected to the splenic binary. So feelings are going to be with any of your variables if they're right facing. You're going to have this kind of cyclical process in the way that you operate. So for left facing, it's all about the now and it's all about strategy. It's all about details. Like in a way, I kind of used that variable to help buy my house. I was very specific, but not in the way that she's talking about, on having like even like the brick in front of my house. I wanted that aesthetically. And so for me, it's like really about like what for me as a generator, what lights me up that I want to focus on and that also that I said to myself that I want to see every day. I'm also power view. So there, if you look at your color, depending on which chart calculator you use, I know, Adriana, yours is just like the little number. It's like the
Yeah, it
bigger
just gives the
number.
number.
The
Yeah.
bigger number is color, right? And then the little number is tone. So you're going to want to look at the bigger number, or if you're looking at like genetic matrix, you're going to want to look at what's in the circle. Whatever's in the circle is color. I like to say C is for circle for color, T is for triangle for tone.
Hmm.
Helps you kind of memorize it in a more fun way. So that's the only way that I see that it could work,
Yeah.
but it comes back to how you connect to your body. And I actually found, not to sidetrack this, but just to say there is a component in everybody's chart. We all have it because we all have all the channels that I call the manifestation stream. And if you truly want to get what you want, that's where you go, is to that stream. You're not going to go, your view can just help you sit in comfortably in your seat for moving forward with big goals, is what I would say, or where you want to go in life. That's really what you want to focus on. And also so that you can like actually like live and love through your day. Because
Hmm.
once I realized my transferred, not self, I'm transferred personal view, Once I realized what she's saying on a regular basis and every day, and it's literally the same thing. Every time a version of me goes to that, I'm like, oh,
Oh,
we've transferred. And I'm like, you bitch.
yeah.
Um,
I find myself doing that all the time now since you taught me more about probability versus possibility.
Oh,
I'm
God.
like, I see it so clearly now when it happens.
Yeah, you
Well,
are.
hold on. You skipped over the most magical part of what should have been in that conversation. What's the
Wait.
fucking channel that you call the manifestation
Oh,
stream?
yeah. So it's the 41 to the 30 to the 36 to the 35.
Oh, cute. I want
Hmm.
more details.
Yeah, I actually, it's so funny. A year ago, I put out a limited time reading to learn how to manifest through that stream,
Oh.
depending on what you have. And some people have
Mhm.
nothing. Um, it could all be open, but you could still manifest through that. You have to connect to each individual gate. And then also I did throw in using your view, because if you want to create movement in your life, that's where you go, is to your view, because that's what's going to help you see clear to be clear, is what I like to say. I have catchphrases for everything and slogans. I have the 4426.
Of course you do.
I can't help it. You know,
Now, what I want to know is in your own life, since technically by those terms you would be a specific manifester, what's your experiment been like with that and what made you realize that doesn't work for you?
because there's no embodiment to it, is the reason why I think it doesn't work,
Oh,
and why it's hit or miss. I told you just before where it sort of worked, but I didn't use it in the way that she said, where she's like, just make she the way I feel like she says is like, just make your list or something like
I
that,
don't remember.
and just be very specific on what it is that you're trying to call in, because it's all about manifestation, and then you'll get it. And it's just like, but you're not connected to the body, and
Mhm.
view isn't even connected to the body anymore. It's when we leave the body and we go to the mind. So it's like, I think you need to use all of the components. And if there's anything that you can use to kind of like almost like that see to believe to take action with kind of thing, is also where I think she was trying to go with that. Like if you see it, then you can believe it. But I think the place that you really want to look at is your tone. Like if you would really want to create movement, because tone is actually what turns the body on. It turns that color on. I look at tone, which is right next to your color, by the way, guys. So can I just explain
Yeah.
briefly how frequency works with the variables so that it makes a little more sense? Okay. So you want to imagine that each of your variables is almost like a radio dial. Okay. And so when energy comes in through the body, it's then going to bounce off what's called your base. Okay. And then color is almost going to like take an image of it. It like captures it. But in order for color to capture it, tone, which is almost the way the body connects to frequency, is going to need to pick up that frequency. It's almost like tone is like the tune of your radio. Okay. So when the frequency comes in, bounces off the base, tone vibrates to it if it's being able to resonate to it, or it doesn't pick it up at all because you're not aware. You're not paying attention in the way that you pay attention. Okay. And so then it bypasses the color, and that's how transference happens, because the tone isn't picking up that frequency and isn't connecting. And so you need to be able to connect to energy. You need to be able to connect to what you're visually seeing, what you want to see, in order for you to actually create.
Ooh.
And that's how it really works. So a little different
Yeah.
than what she's talking
Little
about. Like, I get
nuances.
where she was going with it,
Yeah.
but she didn't bring it home. But she's also not a 1-3. I think she's a 2-4.
I think she's a 2-4, yeah.
Yeah, you got to come back to the foundation in order to really see it. And I think in order to really capture that color that I was just talking about, because the body needs to connect to it, right? That you need to vibe with that energy is basically what it's saying. You need to look at your tone. And so, interestingly enough, we're not only the same facing variable, we don't have the same color. So the way we see the world is a little different.
Hmm.
But we do have the same tone. So the way we connect to our view is the same because it's action. People like when we move over to like the different names, because once we like you know how on we've all probably heard of cognition or super sense. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about tone. But tone is in every single one of those four variables. It's the same steps basically. I look at it as like different rooms in a house. So each variable is a different room. So it's got a different setup, a different experience you're gonna have, right? But there's still walls, right? There's still floors.
Hopefully.
There's a lot of similarities, and you're gonna still enter in through some sort of entrance way, right? But what's in the room is different. So that's the way I explain variables. And when people are like, well, isn't my sense, like smell or
Yeah.
something like that? I'm like,
There's
yeah,
a lot
but
of confusing terms. Yes.
there is. It is very,
Yeah.
very confusing. And it took years for me to really be able to break this down
Mhm.
logically. And I know that people are probably like, what is she talking about? It's complex. This is probably
Yes.
one of the most dense topics
Mhm.
of human design and why you can't simplify it the way that she did, because then you're losing it. Because just because you're left facing, but for us, we're action sense, which is connected to the third tone, which if you look at it on the body side, it's called outer vision. And so it's nice to look at both sides because it paints the full picture. It's the
Mm.
full story. So, what is outer vision? It's easier to look at it on that side to start there. The body understands frequency more than the mind does. That's why the names change and it looks a little different. So, on the body side, third tone is outer vision. Outer vision is being able to spot the patterns in the now. And so how does that interpret when we move over to the mind side? It's being able to spot the patterns in the now so you can then take action. That's how.
Yep.
And like that whole seeing and believe is believing to doing, that's all third tone action people. For me, just being able to share human design and start making it into a business was because I saw other people doing it. And all I had to do was watch their patterns because outer vision, watching the patterns, all I had to do was watch their patterns
Yep.
and then be like, okay, they did it like this, and this. My design is like this, and this. If
Mhm.
I just move this over here and I just move this over here, but because they did the whole thing, I can then see my version.
Yep. I'm
That's
such
why
a
I think a
fucking good
lot of
pattern spotter.
Yeah, that's why I think action people, we taught back to the manifestation if you want. I know it's like everybody wants to vomit when they hear that word,
Hmm.
but back to that manifestation, co-creation, calling things in, whatever you want to call it. I've noticed a theme because I work with so many people in relation to the variables that people that do have third tone action are one of the quicker manifestor people, if you were to label it. Because I mean, it's literally the word action. It's like once the body responds as generators, for us, once the body responds, there's immediate action that then is necessary to take. Now, there's other tones though. We have security sense, we have uncertainty sense, we have action that we just talked about. We have meditation, um, which is also connected to vision. And then we have judgment. That one's a fun one. I love my judgment tones. That's fifth tone, by the
I was
way.
gonna say it's
Um,
clearly a line 5-1.
anything. I mean, this is why I love looking at all of the keynotes of everything
Yeah.
when it comes to the lines in general, because that's what these are. All of what we're talking about with one, two, three, four, five, six, when we're looking at color, when we're looking at tone, it's all connected to the profile lines, all connected to the hexagram. Okay. And so it's the same thing, but again, it's just being expressed in a different way because it's in a different area of your chart. But the foundation is still there. That's why, if you truly want to understand what each line means, not only look at what are the themes of the lines in from a foundational sense, but also when you look at the colors and the tones, it gives the full version. I have a whole series of posts I made like 2 years ago on my Instagram on this, and like people's minds were like blown. And I was like, nobody is seeing this but me.
Yeah. Nobody had ever explained that to me before you, ever.
Yeah. But
Yep.
then it's like, oh, that makes so much more sense because it's
Mm-hmm.
just like the common thread
Yep.
between each place. And like think about it also in relation to meditation tone, which is fourth tone, which is connected to inner vision. I tell anybody that has fourth tone in their chart, the little triangle, okay, in your variable, if you have the number four, not the circle, the triangle, okay, that you should meditate. Like everybody that has that tone needs to meditate because you are connecting to the third eye and it's connected to the solar plexus. Outer vision and action are connected to the spleen. So that's why taking action in the now. That's why once a generator like us that has third tone of action responds, then we can just go. I'm also a fire sign. I'm mostly fire. I have a stellium, and I'm also a Sag sun. So it's just like, get out of my way. Like, move, bitch. Like the
Yep.
song, like when that song came
Ooh,
out, I was like,
bitch.
feel like I'm being seen right now. Uh,
Yep, I get that. Okay, so we touched on a lot. Really, I mean, going back to the basics and the foundation of where that could have come from, understanding why, but also why it's really not helpful if it's super surface level, which is what
Mm.
I think is mostly out there. And you're going to start seeing it now. It's the new year. It's going to be all over
Oh.
Instagram. There's little memes that talk about specific versus non-specific, and it's going to give you like two sentences and tell you what to do. And if that does not resonate with you, we are giving you permission to simply not, to just do the things that work for you, that feel really good. And sometimes that means not specifically trying to call in anything, but just existing and just following the things that light you up or the things you're obsessing about or the places that feel good.
Well,
That's what it's really
can I say, I didn't mean to,
go.
but
Yeah.
when you just said the thing that you're obsessing about, that's left facing. That
Feels it.
wherever you have a left arrow, you are hyper fixed and focused on whatever that is. So it's almost like what externally that you're looking at are you drawn to or is pulling you in, and really lean into that, especially if like the body makes no sense as to why it responds. Like when it comes to being a generator, we're like we don't know why we like things. It just gives us energy, it just brings us joy.
Yep.
And so, if a way to really connect to your authority, really your variables can help you do that, because then you're really connecting to the internal process of you. And that's what the variables are. It's the hard wiring beneath the surface.
Mhm.
It's like your really um particular way in which you come online, a particular way in which you're aware. And so the way the mind is aware is through, can we just like list the six
Yeah,
colors?
go for
So
it.
people are like, because we're talking about I'm power view, which is so annoying, by the way. Because everybody's trying to play games.
Yeah.
And that's all I see. That's all power view sees is it's all about the hierarchy. and the winners and losers. So
Mm.
how annoying is that to be constantly looking at how people are like, and all, like I'm a defined ego too. So it's like everybody trying to prove their worth so that they can like push down the other guy and climb to the top. And I'm just like, you realize, I think the highest version of Power View is that the realization that we're all on top. And
Mhm.
like, I'm like, meet me up here, guys. You know, I'm a winner. So might as well just come to the top with me. I'm not going to tell you to go away. That's a transferred Power View. That's going to be like, you made me feel this way and you should just like, I'm just going to push you down kind
Yeah.
of energy. I'm like, I'm here to lift you up. I'm like, come up, come to the top. Um, but to start at the bottom, the first color is survival. I love survival people. I find them to be funny because they're all about their desires and wants because that's transferred. And you're really going to, especially at the beginning of your human design journey, I actually think it's really helpful to look at the variables. And I approved that dogmatic human design community thing that people have been saying that don't look at your variables if you've just found your human design. I call bullshit on that as well. I actually had 3 people in my last round of my color code variables intensive that were pretty new to human design and they got it. And I also had that happen a few other times. There's at least 1 or 2 people in every round so far that like, they're like, I knew I needed it.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally depends on who the teacher is.
That too. That,
Mhm.
yes. Like who is transmitting this information?
Right.
I really try to meet you where you are. I have a wide open throat. So I can say things in like 50 million different ways. And I'm just like, how do you need me to say it for it to land for you? I also have the design of a transmitter. So I'm like filtering through information and trying to figure out what's the easiest way to explain this. So survival view, these are people that if you just look at the line itself, it's a first line. These are people that are looking for a foundation to their world. They're looking for danger. Okay. My oldest son is survival view and bless his little heart. He's also got an undefined spleen. It's also important to see in relation to your colors, if they're on the splenic side or if they're on the solar plexus side or if they're third or fourth color, that means they're also connected to the ajna. Um, so looking at when you're looking at these colors, like for the first 3 colors, 1, 2, and 3, they're all going to be connected to the splenic binary. And so do you have an open or undefined spleen? Or do you have a defined spleen? Because the way in which that color is going to show up, this is also something that a pattern that I've learned through my intensive. The way in which that color is going to show up and come online, if your center that's connected to that line or that color is open, it's going to be very different. And at the beginning, it's going to be harder for you to comprehend
That makes sense.
and trust because
Hmm.
we don't trust our openness.
Hmm.
And so I'm really focused on helping my little manifestor that has survival view understand his survival view and what to look out for because you're looking for danger and safety. You're looking, are all my basic needs met? Do I have food in my belly? Do I have a house over my head? You know, do I have clothes in my closet? And all of those things, that's all survival view. First color. You're looking, if I cross the street right now, am I going to get hit by a car? That's survival view. Okay. And then after that, we move up to second color. Okay. Now, these people are also very interesting, and they're actually, I would say, out of all the colors, they're my favorite color. Whenever back to manifestation, honestly, or calling things in, if I ever like want to really like bring something in, I go talk to a possibility person because they're like, dude, you can do that shit. Because what they're looking for is how everything can work out. It's a second color. It's the gift. Is that they know that there is a hidden gift and that everything's working out just the way that it's supposed to. And that all you have to really do is believe. And so I love those people. And then there's the third color, which is me, power view. I just basically explained it. It's looking for the winners and losers. It's looking for hierarchy, but also a really beautiful way to look at this that I've realized because a lot of people are like, ew, people that are power or whatever, or when they learn about it, or especially like personal view people, because they transfer to power. There's also transference between the colors, and most of the time you're sitting in the other color, which is your transference. But looking at the hierarchy in relation to roles, like if you look at nature, there's hierarchy in nature, but they're not beating each other up to like, be the tallest tree. Um, it's just some trees are going to grow taller than others. They have different roles. Maybe they need to provide more shade to people. That's their role that they're here to play. So if you look at hierarchy in relation to roles, like which role needs to be where in the dynamic of life, it's actually a much more, I feel like, higher expressed way to look at it. So that's the way I started looking at it. And that's the mutation for me, because actually Ra, the founder of human design, was personal view. So I feel like he has a little distorted way in which he explains power view that I'm like, yes, that is true, but I think we could probably look at the highest expression of it, and
Mhm.
that would look at the roles. So like who's good at what and where do they meet in the levels,
I
you
mean, I
know?
will say in general, the way that Raw communicated a lot of things was not in the highest expression, and it was
Yeah.
very,
It's a
I mean,
manifestor.
yeah, right, true. Yes,
It's not
yes,
supposed to be wrapped in a bow.
yeah.
But also that's the language that he said, at least, that he downloaded basically.
Mhm.
So you got and I think that I like to always start with the foundational language. I don't always end there. Because there's new ways to say things now,
Yep.
or ways to explain it because he talks in riddles.
Mhm.
Also, you have to
Yeah.
so you have to be able to decipher the riddle.
Yep.
But I always like to read whenever I do like readings or sessions with clients, I like to read the transmission and have a conversation about it because it does something to your DNA on a cellular level when you hear the original source material. There's just something that happens. And I believe that to be true because when I worked at the Kabbalah Center, um, the Hebrew letters contain a frequency that when there's a configuration for them, that if you were to change a letter, it's going to change the
Mhm.
entire meaning of that frequency. So that's why I am so passionate about it. Some people are not, but it's because of Kabbalah. And when I realized like how frequency is really specific.
Mhm.
If we want to get back to the topic of the conversation being specific or whatever in a different way, you really need to start with source. I mean, I'm a 1-3 though, so not everybody wants that. So, but I do.
Well, my manifesting generator self likes to start at source and then add my own nuances to it. So,
Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do it. And
yeah.
so that actually, speaking of the four, when
Mm.
we move up to the next level, we finally get to the upper trigram, and that's wanting view, fourth color. And wanting view people, boy, do they want to just be in survival because that's the transference for them. Wanting people actually are really good at seeing the wants and needs of other people and like kind of it's really connected, I feel like, to desire and the connection of like if you think of the fourth line, the network, and it's all about connection. So it's connection to self, it's connection to not only because the four harmonic is the one, the four needs to know that they already have their foundation. They're not here to worry about the foundation. They're here to worry about next level.
Hmm.
That's
Well, and
why
I would
that's
say
why it's
too,
wanting.
as a fourth line, I see the connection with wanting for taking care of other people and all of that
Mhm.
because our the way that we are able to analyze other people, it seems to be very different than other profile lines. And that makes
Yeah,
sense for me
you
with the
really
wanting.
care. You
Yeah.
real like for a fourth line to like really let go of a person, like they like really a lot of times had to do you really dirty for you to
Hmm.
finally let them go. Where for me as a third line, this is like where like it's interesting to see like you're sitting literally right next to me, you know? And I will cut a bitch faster than you could blink your eyes as a as a third line. Um, like it it doesn't take a lot for me. I bump into things though more than a fourth line does that I once I build the bond and the contract is done is the way that I see it as a third line, then we got to move on. But for a fourth line, these are like your soulmates
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
Yep.
So you have to know that like that next person in your network is already ready and waiting for you before you can jump to that
Mhm.
next lily pad where I'm like, I'll flounder.
I'll figure it out. Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And so then we move up to your view, which is probability, fifth
Mm.
color. Which here's the thing with probability view.
Ah, talk about an annoying one.
It is. I think power and probability are probably the two annoying ones, which is funny because like you think of like the 3-5 profile also when I think about that too. It's fun to actually come back to the profile lines I've found with color and tone because it really brings it together.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I would say the third color and fifth color are probably the most annoying out of all the views if I had to pick a couple there. And the reason I also my husband's fifth color all the way, by the way.
Ooh.
He's all fifth colors. So
Ooh.
talk about annoying. Um I love you fifth colors though. Here's the thing. Let me start there. Let me start with the high. Okay. Back to my power view. Let's start with the high. Um what I love about fifth color probability people is if there's a problem and you need a solution, you go to a probability view.
That is
Okay. Cause
definitely me.
they are gonna tell you how it is. Cause I tell all of my probability view clients, I had a couple of my last, actually, no, I think I had 3 or 4 probability views in my last round. And I was like, listen, you need to make your checklist. Talk about back to the checklist. If there's any of the views that truly need to make a checklist,
You
it's
should see my
probability
wall.
view.
For this launch that I'm in right now, I think there's about 20 check boxes right next to me right now. Yeah.
That's literally the way you need to live your life. Um, if you are probability view and you are not making your red flag checklist and your green flag checklist, you are missing out on how you see the world correctly.
Mm.
Okay. I cannot stress that enough. Once I told my clients that had probability view that weren't just naturally doing that, or I know we've talked about it, they're like, oh, yeah, I do that. Or that does feel right for me. It probably feels right for you, and you probably negate it a lot, or you think that it's not important. I'm telling you, it's important. I'm telling you, it's important. The moment that you start really looking at the red flags and the green flags, because you're here to spot what's not working.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's why I say make the checklist so that you can visually back to the view. So you can visually see it lined up.
Yeah.
It'll change your life. Okay. So then we have the what? Okay. I also find 6 color views annoying. I'm so sorry. I'm see, I told you who I loved, and this is just my take, okay? And also, a higher version of this and a lower version of this
Mhm.
are very different. Like a true view and a transfer view is what I call it. Very different, okay? So, and also this is my transference, 6 color personal. So I'm not fond of it. But I do love personal views for the stories they tell.
Mm.
There's always a high end, even if I find it annoying sometimes, because here's the thing with 6 color personal views, it's your world and the rest of us are just living in it. Okay. That's why it's annoying for me because my youngest is personal view. And boy, are we just extras in his movie. Okay. It's just, that's where I get annoyed. Okay. But this child will tell you the best fucking stories. I told him that we were having a Sagittarius new moon a couple weeks ago. And he loves the moon.
Mm.
So also he's a generator, so he loves it. So for 30 minutes, I made the mistake of telling him this. For 30 minutes, he told us a story about the moon.
Holy
And
shit.
I was like, and he also has an undefined throat. So it was just like it kept going, but that's what he does. He just makes up these stories about life. I would say if you have a business, because I know that you're business focused with human design, and I can go on a whole tangent about this with business because I have the 4426. But if you have a business and you're six color, for fuck's sake, tell your story. I am not kidding when I tell my clients that are six color personal view that people live, literally
Mhm.
live for you to hear your story or any story that you come up with. You're really good at telling a story, writing a story, scripting a story, creating a movie, a TV show, or whatever, commercial. Like get crafty, okay? But tell your story. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, or a good story because you're also good. You're just a good storyteller.
Well, I mean, that's like the whole role model energy of the line six. People want
Yeah,
to see the evolution there.
right. So it's like, tell us where you started,
Hmm.
tell us the juicy details, and tell us where you are now.
Yeah.
We really, people really get drawn in. For me, the way that I kind of like use that transferred personal is I take those like victim stories and then I transform and transmute them into power. And so
Mm.
I say, here I was a victim. Like, also, if you're third color power, this is a good way to use it. Here I was a victim with this. Or I like one of my biggest things I like to tell people is I used to hate myself. I'm a vessel of love. My conscious sun and my Neptunes are gate 10. And I really used to hate myself. And it's because I was in transferred personal and also transferred innocence. I'm third color dominant. So it's pretty much everywhere except for my determination. But I really have to take those stories and find the silver lining. And that's where Power View is able to kind of use their transferred personal view and bring it back to themselves.
Mm. Well, people just got an entire lesson there. So you just gave
I
away like
wasn't
half of your thing.
wants to come to the intent next intent.
As you can see, Crystal is like that's your life. It's like the
It
variable. So Crystal is my go-to for anything variables. And yes, making it like tangible,
yeah.
actionable, because that's what people would ask. Like if we're sit here saying it's not about specific versus non-specific, the next
Then
question
how
would
do I
be,
use it?
and how the fuck do I actually do this? Yes, right. So
Yeah.
although this can take a few times to listen to really let it sink in, please
Hmm.
take notes, journal every day on like what you notice about that because it is more about that contemplation over time, not the immediate, oh my God, all of this makes sense. And of course, follow Crystal. You have a whole YouTube show and everything
Hmm.
like that. So,
Hmm.
is there anything else that you feel like we need to wrap this up with? I think we touched on
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm. I know we didn't talk we talked more about left facing because the both
Mm,
of us are left facing. Um, but just to give an overview of right facing, I know we kind of touched on it, but if you're right facing view, really when you're looking out at the world, what are you seeing in your periphery? Okay. What are you sensing? Because there's a more of a sensing with right facing than there is
mm,
with left facing. Because left facing is like, how can I strategize this? How can I conquer this? Our predecessors that were seven centered, their authority was the mind, and they were all left. All their variables were left facing. And so they were here to strategize on how to conquer so that they can explore the world. That was their role back then. We're kind of in transition. That's why we have even if your top variables, just to blow some more minds, people are gonna be like, what? Uh, but your variables are not just in those four arrows at the top of your chart. They're actually hidden in every single gate that you have.
Fucking insane. It's like too much for me. My open-headed Ajna was like, stop it. I can't process. But
But
yes.
I'll just tell you though, Adriana, if you want to just like poke inside of each of your planets and your gates, I would tell you to pop the hood.
Mm,
Pop the hood and just look at. You don't need to try to figure it out. Just look at what the base tone and color is of, let's say, your unconscious Mercury.
mm,
It actually will give you direction and how to really like embody it.
Hmm, I love that.
Yeah. So
I
it's
like about
not there's
Mercury.
yeah. I mean, Mercury is our the way we message, the way we
Mhm.
communicate, right? Um, so it's important. I mean, it's important to really like for me, I'm like, what is at the bottom of each one of these planets and gates? I'm like, I need to know is there more to it? So
Of course you do. Line one.
first line open head, what are you gonna do?
Yes. Thank you so much for joining in and indulging in this conversation with me. Obviously, it was something I knew with the new year, everyone was going to be like, how can I use my human design to manifest and all of that?
Mm,
So, this was like a super intense, in-depth conversation, but take what feels really good and leave what doesn't. Where can people follow you, Krystle?
okay. Yeah, I'm in a few different places. My website, which has everything on it, is humandesignastro.com. I'm actually going to be, I have some mini classes on the variables. They'll be gone by the time this episode comes out, but I am going to start making reports. I do run an intensive called the Color Code Variables Intensive twice a year. So my next round will be in spring. So definitely get on my email list on my website, humandesignastro.com. I'm also Journey Through HD on Instagram. I do have a Human Design and Astro Club Instagram, but honestly, that's not where I show up anymore. So it's the Journey Through HD one. And then I have Human Design plus Astro Club YouTube channel. And that's really where I am going to probably be in 2025 is that YouTube channel. So I would say definitely come over there. I have a lot of educational episodes. I actually have a back to tone with what we were just talking about before. I have a whole episode on tone
Love that. Yes.
that people like lived for because nobody can find anything on tone. And
Yes, that's what I said to you. It was like, nobody's putting this content out. Please put it out so
I
people can find
am
you.
I'm out there
Yes.
trying to share this information with you
Yes.
as free as I can. So yeah, check it out. I also have some blogs on my website. And yeah, humandesignastro.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crystal.
Thank you.